Hi everyone, so I'm here today to talk about this foundation. It's the L'Oreal Infallible Fresh Wear Foundation, 24-hour breathable texture. The color I have is the lightest shade, 400 Pearl. I thought this was actually going to be a little dark. Kind of a quick note about swatches really fast up front here. I have noticed that some swatches do oxidize more on my arm in swatch form as opposed to how they wear on my face. So I feel like swatches, comparison swatches are really helpful, but it doesn't tell 100% of the story. How it's going to work on your face on top of your skincare it's sometimes can be a little hard to predict. I feel like some will swatch and oxidize the same on your face as they do on your arm, and others get on your face and they set and that's it. They don't really change, as opposed to a thicker swatch, they'll kind of keep oxidizing. And maybe the skincare underneath also has something to do with that. I don't really know. So this is one that I thought was going to be a little bit dark based on the swatches and compared to other foundations in my collection. But on my face, it's definitely not too dark. I think it is a good match. And yeah, so before I get too far into it, let's take a look at the swatches, see how this compares to other foundations in my collection, and talk a bit about the color there. And when we come back, I'll talk about skin type, we'll see a demo, wear test, all that good stuff. All right, so these are pretty wet. Some of these dry down kind of quickly though, so if some are a little bit more dry, that is why. I adjusted them though. NARS Natural Radiant Longwear Foundation in Siberia. They just released this shade in this formula, which is very exciting. L'Oreal Infallible Fresh Wear in 400 Pearl. Makeup Revolution Conceal and Define Foundation in F0.2, a nice shade match for me. Flower Beauty Light Illusion Foundation in L0 Shell, the new lightest shade. I can wear this, even though it looks pretty orange. I think it's fine. I've worn it on Instagram several times. Tarte Face Tape in 8S Porcelain Sand. I have a review on this. This is a good color for me. Fenty Pro Filter Soft Matte in 105. Also a good color. Have a video on it. Clinique Beyond Perfecting Foundation in CN 0.5 Shell. I really like Even Better in CN 0.5 Shell, and they just released this color in this formula. Also very excited because I don't love the formula of Even Better, and this formula is more up my alley. So exciting. L'Oreal True Match in W0.5 Creamy Ivory, and Stellar Limitless Foundation. I have a review on this. Good color for me. Stellar Limitless Foundation in L01. L01, is that what it's called? Yes, L01. Really like this formula and this color. I'm all about this foundation. Works really well. I have a review on it. I have reviews on almost all of these except for the flower and the new shades in the NARS and the Clinique. But all of these colors I can wear without mixing. I think they're all fine for me, some better than others. But they all work for me at light to medium coverage. All right, so it's been 15 minutes. I think that some of these have changed color a little bit, but not a huge amount. I don't think any of these really oxidize a ton. On my arm in swatches, like I talk about in the video, swatches aren't everything. Sometimes things seem to oxidize more on my arm than they do on my face. So, you know, your mileage may vary kind of situation. NARS Radiant Longwear, Natural Radiant Longwear. Is that right? I don't know. Natural Radiant Longwear Foundation in Siberia. L'Oreal Infallible Fresh Wear in 400 Pearl. Makeup Revolution Conceal and Define in F0.2. Flower Beauty Light Illusion in L0 Shell. Tarte Face Tape in 8S Porcelain Sand. Fenty Pro Filter Soft Matte in 105. Clinique Beyond Perfecting in CN 0.5 Shell. I think they call it Foundation Concealer, whatever. L'Oreal True Match in W0.5 Creamy Ivory. Stellar Limitless Foundation in L01. All right, so I had bought this and tried it once and then thought, oh, I'm not going to use this. There's no way I can use this. The fragrance is strong. It has quite a bit of alcohol in it. I really didn't like it the first time I wore it. And I kind of put it to the side, like I'll probably get around to this at some point, but there were other foundations I wanted to review before that. Then Taylor from the Taylor had given it a really positive review, and so a lot of people were talking about it. I'm like, I need to give this a second chance. I was so off put by the ingredients and the like very noticeable fragrance that I was like, ugh, and I didn't think about it again really. Other than every once in a while I saw it in my like to be reviewed pile and was like, I should do something. So I have been wearing it a lot actually, and I have found that this is really a really nice formula, surprisingly. Taylor has dry skin, but I have found some foundations that work well for her do not work well on my dry skin. I'm a fair bit older. I'm 39 years old. I have, I think, a lot more kind of flaky patches than Taylor does. And I just struggle with things catching on my texture, the flaky skin, things kind of creasing in my smile lines, but also kind of like drying out and looking cakey and separated around my mouth, all that. Right now I would say my skin type is pretty dry. I do have oil in my T-zone, but I really struggle with a lot of kind of dry flakiness the most. And my other big issue is how foundation tends to break down around on my chin and my upper lip. You might be able to tell in the demo, I was really trying to blend quickly. This foundation is one that sets really fast on me. I don't know if it's because of the skincare I use underneath, but I have to move quickly or I'll have little blobs where I put the foundation on because I always dot it on and then blend it out with my sponge. If I don't move quickly enough, those little blobs will set and you can kind of see them and it will just never really go away. So I have to be quick when I apply this. Since it does have a fair amount of alcohol, it's not super surprising. Those types of formulas tend to dry down pretty fast. All that alcohol just kind of evaporates and then leaves the foundation behind. But this one, if I can get it blended out well, which is most of the time, as long as I'm not being too slow. And the other thing is I don't let the product sit on my hand too long between when I've like scooped some up on my fingers to put it on my face and blend it out. If I leave that too long, it will definitely start getting even harder and harder to blend out. So sometimes if I notice I've been kind of slow, I'll just start out with some fresh product. It is pretty liquidy and I feel like you really need to shake it very well in order to get everything kind of mixed up, because sometimes if I don't shake it too well, so I'll notice that it looks a little bit like there's some sort of difference in texture when I pump it out. So I do typically use more than one pump, which is kind of unusual for me. I like to go kind of light to medium coverage. I'm not looking for full coverage. I don't try to cover my freckles, all that stuff. But this, I don't know if it just is one that kind of absorbs into my sponge a little bit more readily, or if it's just the coverage is a little bit lower than some of the other things I use and how liquidy it is. I'm not really sure. But it is something that I feel like 1.5 pumps to sometimes 2 pumps is what I end up using. So once I get it blended out, it definitely sets down by itself. My cheeks I have not powdered at all, and they feel totally like set dry, no tackiness whatsoever. I've found that I can go without powder on my T-zone. They will feel slightly tacky throughout the day, and I feel like that's more likely to transfer if I don't set it. So generally I do set my chin since that's what's most prone to transfer, and then depending on how sticky things are feeling, how much moisture is in my skin essentially, I'll then go through and like set maybe my nose, kind of where sunglasses would hit, and under my eyes where my concealer is, and also on my forehead. Just try to get the finish to be similar everywhere. I do have highlight on my forehead today, so the middle of my forehead doesn't have any highlight, and I would say it doesn't look super duper matte. I probably have a little powder on there, if I recall correctly. And my nose has, again, a little bit of highlight, but not a ton, and my chin has no highlight, but it was definitely powdered, and I feel like it still feels dry, though it doesn't quite feel as dry as like my cheeks. My cheeks don't feel dry in a bad way. They just feel like, nothing is going to be moving around. They are good to go. So I have found at the very end of the day, this does hold up really nicely, though it does start breaking down around my mouth and that kind of trouble area that I have, though it's not bad. Compared to a lot of foundations I have, it does quite well in that area, some days better than others, and I think that always comes back to like what condition my skin is in. So I feel like, you know, that's not necessarily the foundation's fault, just because I see across the board a lot of my foundations kind of break down, but this one does well and it doesn't look super dry. It doesn't crease in my smile lines at all. Like it doesn't at the beginning, and by the end of the day it still looks completely smooth there, which is pretty unusual. So that is awesome. I feel like the places where it sits nicely, so on my cheeks, for example, that remains transfer resistant, transfer proof all the way to the end of the day. Places where I have any amount of oil coming through, it definitely does transfer by the end of the day. And like if I'm in the shower and I get my face wet, I can just like rub it off those spots, but it won't move off of my cheeks. So I think, you know, that's the case with most foundations, is once your oils really start coming through, a lot of times it will kind of break down that the water resistant, transfer resistant properties, just because oil kind of, I mean, that's what we use to take off our makeup. So clearly oil is the enemy of most makeup out there. So yeah, I've been really pleased with this. I wish it didn't have a fragrance. It probably wouldn't work as nicely if it didn't have alcohol. So I guess I will have to admit it's not terrible. If you do have dry skin, alcohol can be fairly drying to your skin. So, you know, I have dry skin. I haven't noticed really a big difference because I have been wearing this a lot lately. Probably 7-8 times I've worn it, and I've definitely worn it like at least 5 days in a row, and I didn't notice a noticeable change like in the moisture levels in my skin. So I feel like that's pretty good, but you know, it's always, I think, a chance. Alcohol is kind of a controversial ingredient. It really makes things very nice to apply, but it can be irritating to some skin. It can be drying to dry skin. And Paul's Choice is basically anti-alcohol if it's in the top 6 ingredients. Other dermatologists say it's okay. The research doesn't prove that it's an irritant. I don't know what to think. All I can say is I have been able to wear this regularly, and I haven't noticed a change in my skin wearing it regularly. I haven't noticed more breakouts, and I have not noticed extra dryness. Whereas when I used the La Roche-Posay water cooling sunscreen that has a lot of alcohol in it, that I did seem to notice an increase in breakouts when I used that. So who knows if that's the alcohol or something else in that SPF that's making me break out, but it is what it is. You know, everything, your face is different from everybody else's face. So I can't really predict how it's going to wear on you and what things might irritate your skin and what things might irritate my skin. I have a hard time figuring that out for myself. So who knows? Anyway, so if you're very fair and you have kind of neutral to yellow undertones, I think this is a nice one. It doesn't look to me as yellow once it's blended out on my skin. So I do bring the foundation a little bit further down onto my neck, on the parts of my neck that don't break out in a rash constantly. From like here down, it's like this never-ending cycle of rashes. And I can only use like Aquaphor on that part of my neck, but there's a line somewhere where I can use like foundation and active skincare ingredients. So I do bring it down a little bit further because I do have some, because I use like the different and everything under there, sometimes I have some redness, and it helps kind of make that transition a little bit more seamless when I have the redness covered up. So I feel like sometimes it actually looks a little bit light, which I was so surprised by, because the swatches really make it look like it's not going to be super, super light. But on my face, once it sets down, it really is quite fair. So I think that if if things that work for me tend to work for you, I think this is probably going to be one that you can wear too. And it's a good one. Obviously I have some hesitation about the ingredients and wanting to recommend that, but it's kind of like on America's Test Kitchen or Cooks Illustrated. It's recommended with reservations. I think it's a really nice formula, but I also am not super jazzed about the ingredients in it and their potential to irritate faces. So I think that's all I wanted to say. Hopefully this was helpful. I'll be back at the end of the day and we can see how it wore. Hopefully today is a good skin day and I'll get a good wear test out of this one. Fingers crossed. So I'll see you soon. All right, so it's 10 p.m., so it's been 11 hours. Timing on this is always a little weird. I'm definitely pretty shiny. It's breaking down in the places that it normally breaks, like foundation on me normally breaks down, so kind of upper lips looking a little cakey. Some of the flakiness that I mentioned, just this whole area is just looking kind of rough. I think I had some transfer down here, most likely due to the baby bumping me. Quick blot. I noticed I didn't have a lot of coverage over the bridge of my nose, so I went ahead and put some concealer on there when I was trying to do face pictures, basically. I can see a little foundation transferred from blotting, but not a ton, so that's fine. And I feel like it looks fine after I blotted. It doesn't look worse. Sometimes, you know, blotting will hide how rough the foundation looks, but I feel like this is okay. Just the flakiness issue. I don't feel like the color has changed. I think the color looks the same. Yeah. It's looking not super great on this side of my nose, but this side looks fine, so probably just means I didn't apply it very well on the other side. So final thoughts, I feel like this is a really nice wearing foundation. It's not the best I have, but I have super like particular kind of problematic tricky skin to work with, so I don't really think that that's necessarily the fault of the foundation. My only real gripe is that the ingredients are kind of rough for sensitive skin, and that keeps me from feeling like I can recommend it to everyone. I feel like it wears really nicely on my dry cheeks. It's just places where I have like flakiness issues plus oil. That's a really tough combo for any foundation, and I can't really fault the foundation too much. And it's way less cakey looking like on my upper lip than some foundations that I've tested recently have been. So let me know if you have any questions or comments. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch my video today, giving a thumbs up, comment, all that stuff. It helps out my channel and I really appreciate it, and I like talking to you guys. And if you did try it out, let me know how it worked for you, your skin type, and also what color you used and other colors that work for you. It's always good to hear about that stuff in the comments, people's kind of real world experience, how it looks on their face. Yeah, I think that's it. I hope you are having a wonderful day, and I'll see you soon.